While bananas and sugarcane copped the full force of Cyclone Yasi, an emerging tropical fruit industry in North Queensland has also been tested by Mother Nature. The country's leading commercial Achacha plantation near Townsville has made it through the cyclone and 3 floods in recent years. But as Kerry Staight reports, the biggest challenge may lay ahead, convincing Australian consumers to invest in a fruit most have never heard of.
It's a typical hectic morning at the country's largest fruit and vegetable wholesale market in Western Sydney. But in amongst the boxes of familiar produce is something foreign to most Australian taste buds. The Bolivian fruit, the Achacha.
It's very close to, how could I say, like lychee and a custard apple mixed, like, how should I say, like it's got a bit of sherbety flavour with it. It's hard to explain. It's really nice though. You know, after so many years in the game, I'm quite taken with it. I thought it's the nicest fruit I ever tried.
The name that's used in Bolivia is the Achacha, which means honey kiss. We figured that when it arrived in Australia, that was going to be a bit too much of a mouthful for Australians. Our predilection to abbreviate everything, we thought, well, we better get in and abbreviate it first.
Businessman Bruce Hill and experienced fruit agent John Sarcasmo were sold on the idea of bringing the fruit to Australia by their friend Hugo Aguilar. The Bolivian discovered the Achacha when he was a boy while searching for gold in the Amazon rainforest.
Let's see what it tastes like.
We found a lot of gold, but we're starving. So the guy that was working for my old man, he showed us the path. And he said, 4 days from here, we get a beautiful tree with fruit. So we reached there, and then we have found the fruit. We ate for about 2 days. And I decided to leave my gold tint berry, and I took 100 kilos, that's it.
The Bolivians regard it as part of their national patrimony, and they are very sensitive to someone else growing it. And we wanted to do it properly and legally, so we spent 6 months or so just negotiating with the Bolivian government over conditions to take it out of the country, to be given an exit permit for the fruit.
The next challenge was finding someone to grow it. Enter former cane cutter, mango producer turned vegetable grower Ross Oliveri.
My partner John Sarcasmo, who mentioned it to me, I thought he was mad. But he said, I'll fly you down to Sydney, we're bringing some fruit over for tasting. He said, you try the fruit and give me your opinion. So I ended up going to Sydney. I tried the fruit at where they have quarantine there. I thought it was very nice, but I knew nothing about it. But he said anyone who can grow eggplant can probably grow these things. So that was it.
Less than a decade on, and Mr. Oliveri has not only proved he can grow the exotic fruit, he now runs what's believed to be the biggest plantation in the world, about a half-hour's drive southeast of Townsville.
We believe we have more trees than there are in Bolivia. It's a bit hard to know exactly how many trees there are in Bolivia, but the latest count that we were told of was about 12, 14, 15,000. We have 17,500 trees here.
The company concedes planting out the entire 120-hectare property is a gamble.
There is a thing out there saying all these new fruits, 95% don't make it. And we've actually gone to a new fruit, but we've gone into it a big way. And you know, if you go down in a big way, basically.
Investors have been pretty good. We've had a few who have been a bit concerned, but we said to them right at the beginning, this is not for the money you need for your kids' education. This is for risk money. The banks just knocked us back one after the other. and we couldn't get money from them. The government said, oh, what a great idea. You're changing sugarcane into a different crop. That's exactly what we want. But unfortunately, we haven't got any money for you. So we've had to go it alone.
It's been an extensive and expensive experiment. The company bought an old cane plantation, regraded it and installed an automatic irrigation system. Ross Oliveri then had to work out how much sun protection these forest-dwelling trees needed.
We did do a trial. We actually put shade cloth on about 600 trees. And we found, after about a year, I found out that the trees under shade cloth out in the field weren't performing any better than the ones out in the sun. They've eventually climatised and they handled it. So, yeah, that was a $10,000 experiment that we didn't need.
The compromise, 12 months under shade in the nursery before facing the full glare in the field. But even then, it was an anxious waiting game for the first trees to bear fruit.
When we first planted the trees, they were sitting out in the paddock doing nothing, growing very slow. Bruce decided to send me over to Bolivia, see if I could learn anything. So I went over to Bolivia for about 10 days and had a look at a few of the better plantations there. And it opened my eyes up a little bit. I said, you know, my trees are going a lot better than these ones. So when I got home, I was a bit happier.
And judging by the yields they're now achieving, the trees more than make up for their slow start.
The trees do load up with a fair bit of fruit. And once the trees load up with fruit, you've got to be able to feed them. You've got to feed them, otherwise you won't get the quality of the fruit.
More so than other exotic fruits? Or...
Yeah, a lot more than mangoes and stuff like that. I mean, yeah, they're a bit more demanding. But a tree this size actually grows a lot of fruit you get a tree this size with 30 or 40 kilos of fruit. I mean, you'd be flat out getting a mango tree with that.
It seems flying foxes are the most serious predators, devouring up to 10% of the crop last year. But it's North Queensland's volatile wet season that has proved the biggest threat for this fledgling industry. This season's heavy rains have stained the fruit and reduced the sweetness. And then there's the wind to worry about.
We've just had 3 big floods, 3 years in a row. They stood up to that all right. I don't think they'll stand up to cyclones.
That prediction was put to the test at harvest time, when the mother of all cyclones, Yasi, swept across North Queensland. When Landline returned to the plantation this week, it was clear the Category 5 cyclone had left its mark. Though compared to banana growers further up the coast who took a direct hit, Ross Oliveri was feeling pretty lucky.
It come through, but it was in our favour a little bit. It come at the angle of the rows we're on. Didn't do as much damage as I thought it'd do. As it is, we only lost probably up to 500 trees out of 17,500.
And even those toppled trees could make a comeback.
We're going to probably prop up 500. We might only save 300 out of that, so we'll probably lose, 200 of them for sure.
The fruit that hung on was soon being pulled off as pickers returned to work. Despite the losses, this year's harvest could be around 100 tonnes, still well up on 2010. And with yields expected to increase rapidly as more trees come online, it's the workforce, not the weather, that really has Ross Oliveri worried.
The biggest challenge is the picking of the fruit. I mean, growing the trees was the easy part. I think the hard part's yet to come. And, organising 200 pickers and... I'm getting too old for it anyway. The closest is probably about 3 weeks away.
It's not just the quantity that's the issue. It's making sure the quality is just right.
The yellow fruit, as you see there, it looks ripe, but it's not quite ripe. If you pick it yellow, it's going to be sour. It's going to have too much tart. You'll have to throw it away.
So it won't ripen?
It won't ripen. This fruit does not ripen after you pick it.
Have you got a ripe one there?
I've got ripe one here. It's very nice, ready to eat. It's easy to open. Just give it a little dent in the skin.
It just opens.
And just give it a little squeeze and she pops open. And there you are, you've got snow white.
Look at that flesh.
Beautiful.
The next hurdle is finding enough people to eat the fruit. While the company had no trouble selling the 10 tonnes it produced during the first harvest, in 5 years this plantation is expected to turn off around 200 times that amount into a market that often picks familiar fruit over the more exotic varieties.
Would you like a sample? It's an Achacha.
That's been a very, very difficult exercise. Every weekend in Sydney we'd go to growers' markets, we'd go take the fruit to shops where it was being sold and demonstrate it. Because in general, the only way to get people to buy it is to try it. And if you just watch a person walk into a store and pick up a fruit and smell it and say, well, it doesn't smell like anything, I don't know what that is, and they put it down and buy a banana.
The legwork is starting to pay off, with fruit now selling in Queensland, New South Wales and Victoria for around $10 a kilo. This year, for the first time, the two major supermarkets have added it to their fresh fruit lines. And if Bruce Hill has his way, it may even end up in health food stores.
You make a drink out of the skin, break the skins up by hand or in a blender, put them into a jug or something, add water, leave it in the fridge overnight, add a sweetener. That's used as a hunger suppressant in Bolivia. The honey that you make from it is used for medicinal purposes, and in Bolivia it sells for 10 times the price of normal honey. People use the skin, the inside of the skin, to rub on marks on their skin, warts and things like that. Now, we haven't got medical proof of any of this.
Yeah, we grow somewhere close to 500 different species here, and if you look through here, you can actually see a fruit that comes from Borneo.
One man watching the development of the Achacha with interest is Alan Carle. He helped establish the tropical fruits industry in North Queensland, and his backyard is now a living gene bank of exotic plants that he collects from jungles around the world. This one looks a bit like a kiwi fruit, but I'm guessing it's not.
No, it's called a keppel apple. It comes from Sumatra in Indonesia. It has the properties that once you consume this fruit for the next 24 hours, all your bodily odors and excretions will smell nice and sweet. Australia needs to embrace more tropical fruits because we have the most guaranteed rainfall, the tropics. If we're interested in food security and not relying on third world countries or other countries for our food supply, I think we need to embrace these new products.
While the fruit bowl out here contains more than a mouthful, with Rolinias, Irasars and Guanabana,